Does this feel like your destiny?
Haley was changing clothes by the roadside. Suddenly, a hiker appeared out of nowhere. Fortunately, he didn't show any signs of hostility. Noticing that Haley's car had broken down, Peter even took off his shirt to help her repair it. Soon, the car roared back to life. Originally, that should have been the end of it. Haley thanked him and prepared to leave, but through the rearview mirror, she saw the pitiful look on Peter's face. Feeling a pang of sympathy, Haley hesitated. She decided to offer him a ride. Little did she know, this decision would become her lifelong regret. On the road, the two of them chatted pleasantly, but when Peter learned that Haley was driving alone to reunite with her fiancé, he gradually revealed his true colors. He even started making inappropriate demands. Haley was caught completely off guard. She immediately pulled the car over to the roadside, telling Peter to get out right away. Unexpectedly, Peter grabbed her arm tightly. Then he pulled out a sharp knife. Haley had no choice but to obey his commands. He ordered her to drive toward an abandoned motel. Haley knew that if she ever reached the destination, it would mean her death. She quickly racked her brain, desperate for a way to escape. Along the way, she spotted a sharp turn up ahead. As Peter fumbled to fasten his seatbelt, Haley seized the moment. She tried to swerve and throw him out of the car, but instead, the vehicle veered off the road and tumbled down a steep slope. When Haley opened her eyes again, she was horrified to find herself trapped inside the wrecked car. Peter, however, had been flung outside. Haley unbuckled her seatbelt, but one of her legs was pinned tightly beneath the seat. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get free. She quickly bandaged her wound as best she could and reached for her phone to call the police. But to her despair, the phone was nowhere to be found. Just as she was panicking, she caught sight of Peter in the rearview mirror. Unbelievably, his body twitched. Haley froze in terror. At that critical moment, her eyes fell on the dagger that had slipped from his hand. She desperately shifted her body, struggling to reach the weapon, but the very next second, Peter suddenly appeared, staggering toward her. Haley never expected that Peter had only suffered a minor head injury. Aside from a few cuts and bruises, he wasn't hurt at all. When he saw the miserable state Haley was in, a twisted sense of pleasure filled his heart. Wanting her to die slowly in despair, Peter didn't finish her off right away. Instead, he treated his own wounds and left Haley to die in the desolate wilderness. She cried out desperately for help, but in such an empty, isolated place, who would ever come to save her? Eventually, she stopped screaming. She had to find a way to survive the freezing, difficult night. The temperature difference between day and night was brutal, and Haley looked around in despair. Fortunately, she still had a sweatshirt, just enough to barely keep out the cold. She shifted her body, turned on the car heater, and reached out her hands for warmth. At last, the icy chill in her body began to ease slightly. By the next morning, when she woke again, her wound had already been covered with ants. Struggling to fight them off drained what little energy she had left. Thirst overwhelmed her, and she greedily gulped down what remained of half a bottle of water. But in the next second, she forced herself to spit half of it back out, because she knew every single drop of water could be the key to her survival. That night, she was too afraid to waste electricity, so she curled up early and drifted into a restless sleep. The following day, she was startled awake by the sound of footsteps crunching on dry branches. Panicked, she grabbed a shard from the broken rearview mirror to check her surroundings. To her horror, she saw Peter had returned. He was carrying a bag in his hand. Inside were bottles of water and packets of food. Peter gazed at Haley's desperate, helpless state with satisfaction. Haley begged him for just a little food and water, but the sadistic man was savoring the pleasure of watching her slowly wither away. Then, laughing cruelly, Peter left with the bag of supplies. That night, Haley took out a pen and some paper from her bag. She wrote down everything she had endured, hoping that if she died, the police would someday find the note as evidence. Then she lit her lighter, starting a small fire beside the car. She leaned against its faint warmth and drifted into uneasy sleep. But in the middle of the night, she was jolted awake. A rat had climbed onto her chest and bitten her. Haley frantically grabbed it and threw it out. To her horror, she realized the entire car was swarming with more of its kind. Panicking, she snatched up her car keys and swung wildly, driving the rodents away. By then, sleep was impossible. The hunger gnawed at her again, worse than ever before. A desperate thought struck her. Suppressing her nausea, She picked up the rat she had killed. She slit it open and cut a few strips of meat. She roasted the pieces over the small fire and shoved them into her mouth. To her surprise, the taste wasn't as unbearable as she had imagined. Haley forced herself to eat more, growing bolder with each bite. When she was done, she tossed the rat's remains far away. Then she clutched her water bottle and drank greedily, gulp after gulp. By the morning of the third day, Haley was startled awake by the buzzing sound of a phone. It turned out that her phone had been buried under a pile of leaves outside the car. Just as she managed to grab it, the call on the other end had already been cut off. She quickly tried to call back, but at that exact moment, Peter reappeared outside the car. He was shocked to see Haley still so energetic. After a closer look, he realized she had found something to eat. Suddenly, Haley's phone began to buzz again, realizing he absolutely couldn't let her call the police. Peter immediately crawled into the car. He snatched the phone right out of her hands. Under Haley's terrified gaze, Peter pulled a hammer out of his bag. He hesitated for a moment, then put it back. Next, he pulled out a nail gun, even firing it into the air to demonstrate. Haley was nearly scared to death, but Peter didn't use it. Finally, he took out a handsaw. He placed the saw in front of Haley, leaving it for her. After Peter left, Haley picked up the saw and tried to cut through the car door, but it was completely useless. Furious, she threw the saw aside. In the end, she decided to conserve her energy and drifted into sleep. By midnight, Haley was enduring her third night trapped inside the car. She was already weak with hunger and thirst, her lips cracked and bleeding. Desperate, she unzipped her pants and collected her own urine, forcing herself to stomach it. She drank it down. At that exact moment, heavy rain suddenly poured down from the sky. Soon after, a car pulled up at the edge of the cliff. Haley frantically honked the horn, hoping for rescue, but to her horror, it was Peter again. Thinking quickly, Haley smeared the blood from the dead rat onto her leg. She made Peter believe that she had cut herself with the saw, and that she had passed out from excessive blood loss. All the while, Haley's hand was tightly gripping a jagged shard of glass. As Peter climbed inside, ready to assault her, Haley suddenly spun around, and with all her strength, she drove the broken glass straight into Peter's body. No one knew how much time had passed. With the heavy rain pouring down into the canyon, the car was eventually swept downstream. Haley's leg was finally pulled free from beneath the seat. Having escaped death, she swam desperately toward the riverbank. She collapsed on the shore, resting for half a day. Then, leaning on a wooden stick, she limped forward step by step. No one knew how long she had walked. Suddenly, Haley spotted a house in the distance. Overjoyed, she hurried toward it. But just then, the stick in her hand was snapped in half by a bear trap. It turned out the entire ground was covered with hidden traps. Haley broke off the useless stick and used the shorter piece to probe the ground as she moved forward. After carefully avoiding the hunting traps, she finally made it to the window. She thought at last she was going to be saved, but inside, she heard a woman's agonized screams. It was none other than Peter, and at that very moment, he was savagely torturing the homeowner. Moments later, Peter finished the man off, killing him without mercy. While Peter went to the bathroom, Haley seized the chance to sneak into the house. She then discovered the homeowner wasn't the only victim. In fact, over the past few days, Peter had turned this place into his personal base of slaughter. Haley grabbed the homeowner's pistol and went upstairs. There, she freed a captive girl. But just then, Peter suddenly returned from outside. Haley had no choice but to hide behind the door.
Don't you fucking touch her!
She quickly told the girl to run outside, while she herself crawled under the dining table. But Peter still managed to see through her plan.
Away from me! Oh, shit!
More you try! Does this feel like your destiny?
As Peter searched upstairs, Haley took the opportunity to shove him down the staircase. Peter tumbled violently to the floor below. One of his feet landed right in a hunting trap. Haley and the girl hobbled over to him, supporting each other. Haley gave Peter the same two choices he had once given her: cut through his own thigh to survive, or stay trapped and wait for death, just as he had once done to her. She now left him to his fate. Without looking back, Haley walked away with the girl. As for Peter, his end was already written. In the end, he didn't even have the courage to pick up the knife beside him. And so, Peter died helplessly, devoured by the very trap he had set for others.